Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and here we are again at another Stroke Buddies Stroke Survivor Support Group meeting. And today, I wanted to share Robin Oxford Davis's experiences and with everyone because I I guess I got onto her the first time I saw one of her videos because I really like her videos. They're well thought out. She explains everything. Anybody who's watched mine knows that I think that that's important. And so I guess we'll start out, Robin. I'll just ask you to tell a little bit about your stroke story and how you got to where you are today, making videos and helping people on Instagram.
Well, first of all, Ralph, I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Okay,
Yep.
great.
I can hear.
Great. I had my stroke about 4 years ago. Not about 4 years ago. 4 years ago. I woke up one morning ready to go to work, and I felt like, but
Mike.
Sorry, drug addict camps. You didn't know existed. And I did yesterday.
Good. Got some breaking up going on.
Yeah.
Choppy.
Yeah, what's his name? Daryl Steinberg, leaders of other California's 10 largest cities have asked.
Somebody's got some audio going. Okay, maybe there we go.
There we go.
Is that better? Okay, so you woke up 4 years ago, ready to go to work.
a little groggy, but we just keep going. I work hard. Of course I'm groggy. It's Monday morning. Of course, of course I'm weak, and I'm going to feel better later on in the day. So I get up, I get dressed, I go to work. I work part-time in social service at a Miami-Dade County school with kids who are really challenged. So it was a really stressful job, stressful environment. So, but I noticed as I work and I get to work, I'm walking, I'm feeling still a little strange, and I really couldn't put my finger on what was bothering me. I just thought maybe I'm just feeling a little, I just snap out of it, I stayed about 4 or 5 hours actually. Go home, I called my husband and I said, honey, I don't feel right today. I feel a little weak. I'm not sure what it is. And so he goes, well, take your blood pressure, because I have a history of my blood pressure. I was on medication. So my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was like 198 over something, And my husband hangs up. He said, right there, I'm going to take you to the doctor. So I go to my doctor. They take my feel really, really. I tell them what I'm feeling. They put me through like little exercises, but they go to emergency. Go to emergency, and they're examining me, and of course my blood pressure is still high, and they give me this full-fledged examination, and he goes, yeah, you have stroke. And I'm like, I didn't have any of those symptoms, the face. I did have weakness on my left side. So they said, yeah, you've had a, before it was out, left side was gone. My whole left side was gone. I had some at the hospital, but I won't get into that part. But I was gone. I couldn't walk, I couldn't stand, I had trouble speaking. The whole picture. I was shocked. I was angry a little bit. I was upset with myself to an extent, because in the back of my mind, I knew something was wrong with me. I just didn't give myself the attention that I needed, So I'm in a stroke. I've lost the complete use of my left eye. But at the same time, you know, I did not a full scope of what was in front of me. I thought in my mind that I would be okay in about 30 days because nobody had that conversation with me. Nobody had that, and I don't know what's up with that, but nobody had a hard conversation and said, "Oh, Miss Davis, this is what you're up against. You maybe you'll be okay, but maybe it'll take years." You And so nobody had a conversation with me. And again, I don't know if it was good or bad because I was optimistic. I'm thinking, 30 days up and on my feet and a little vacation and just kind of relax and pull myself back together. And that's honestly what I thought. And so after I left the hospital, I went into like a residential rehab city. And in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they're bringing me here. So I learned to walk, bring my arm back, and my speech problem is gonna, they're gonna put me back together. So I had some really good physical therapists, occupational therapists there, really good, really good. I felt like, I'm pretty good. So after about 5 days, I'm still not myself. And day 3, and this was the danger of really not knowing the extent of your problem. Day 3, I'm in into rehab place, and I had to go to the bathroom. And I'm sorry if this is too much, but anyway, the bathroom, and the nurse, calling the nurse, and she wasn't coming time, and uh, and I figured I I can make it to the bathroom. You know, I can scoot my way and just go really slow, and right there. And so I get up. I tell myself, I get up. I try to get up to start making my way to the bathroom. And I immediately, and that, the anybody cry want to cry now to think about it. That was the scariest moment of my life because there was no preparation fall, there was no stumbling fall, there was no hold on to this. It was just hit the ground. And there was like equipment and chairs. So I didn't really know if I was going to survive the fall. Oh, is something going to stab me? Am I going to break it? So I hit the floor, never made the bathroom. So you can imagine what that was like. And the nurse ultimately comes and finds me on the floor. And she helps me up, she helps me in the shower and all this kind of stuff. And that's when it kind of dawned on me, I have a problem, I have a real problem. This may be a bigger issue than I think it's gonna be. And I'm doing good in my mind in the rehab. And I'm still not walking, but I'm on this Hemi walker thing, and I'm mostly in. And so day 5 comes, and they go, "Well, you're going home tomorrow." Excuse me? And they go, "You're going home tomorrow." And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to survive? I can't walk. I can't move my arm. Side is gone. Like, what do you mean? I'm going home. I really thought I was going to be there until I was much better. So I came home. I wasn't educated. I wasn't aware. I wasn't advised. This is what's, I talked to some people, but it wasn't dawning on me. It wasn't registered with me, that when you get home, they went through their usual hospital, rehab facility booklet, you know, and crap. So, or I learned that it was crap because I'm still kind of in the dark about what's ahead for me, you know. So after going home, days I go to the rehab facility that they recommended for me. I went there, and after it took some weeks, you know, it took some weeks for me to get in a rehab in my area, you know, and I had no idea what that time was costing me. I learned on those first few weeks, days, months, critical. But this in my mind, I'm thinking, well, let me do some research while waiting to go to this rehab. Do some research, and I'm reading about the type of stroke I had, and I'm looking at other stroke survivors, and I'm like, okay, you know, I have a job with this. You know, this is something. You know, this is not going to be a quick 30-day recovery. You're going to be all right, girl, kind of situation. And uh, I quickly began to realize that I was going to have to take some responsibility for recovery. And one of the first things I did, even though I was apprehensive, I started working on this is my affected hand, my left hand. I started working on my affected. I wasn't, I couldn't get around by myself. I needed help getting out of bed, getting in the wheelchair, getting to the bed. I needed help with everything. But what I could do was I could sit up with effort, with great effort. I could push myself where I was sitting up, and my right hand was good. And I found exercise where I could move my hands back and forth, and that maybe that would help. And I literally did that like hundreds of times. Wasn't too much else I could do. I did some other stuff, but I remember this distinctly as I would do this hundreds of times a day, put music on, put the music. And I remember sitting, if you go to my Instagram page, you'll see it, sitting there, and I would move my fingers, and my fingers would move really slowly by themselves. And I'm like, I got this. I got this. You know, this is, you know, this. And um, by my ability to have some responsibility in my outside. So, but I'm going to go to a professional rehab facility and help me and fix me, and we're done, you know, and go to and let me know where you want me to stop, Rem.
You're good.
So I go to my first rehab facility in my area, and I'm looking around. I'm looking at everybody. I'm assuming everybody's in different stages of recovery, and I'm looking around and I'm imagining myself and what I was doing and all this, and it wasn't feel good. Didn't feel like the right place. It didn't feel good to me. And I start, and I get with the therapist, who I wasn't even sure if they were like a full-fledged licensed physical therapist person. They may have been like aide or assistant or whatever. Well, damn, I can do this at home. You know, I'm paying, my parents is paying for this. Give me something that I can only do here. You know what I'm thinking. What who and it's just me, and I don't. So let them do what they do. After a few days, I got out of there. And I'm sorry, Ralph. I tend to curse, and I'm trying really hard not to curse. I won't curse on your show. But
It's okay.
anyway, so after a few sessions at that rehab, I get out of there. I got not gonna. I said, this is like a gym for people. Like if you, it was like a gym for people who were, you know, too of a certain age, and they couldn't go to like a regular gym, so they're going to come here. That's what it felt like. That's what it looked like. I was not happy. So I started making effort with the patient to find another facility for me to go to. It took some effort, and again, it took time, valuable time. valuable recovery. It was much, much better, but what I found that they were heavily going policy. I would come in, it was a good thing. They had a book on where I was and what I was doing. They did their whole assessment. I appreciated all of that, but they wouldn't step out of their procedure. You know, they had a procedure. We do this, and then we do this, and then we do this, and that was it. That was how it was, and so that kind of frustrated me a little bit because I remember going and saying my 15 minutes of a 40 to hour recovery session, rehab session, was spent warming up on a bike or just something I could do at home. And so I asked my therapist, I said, listen, if I do this at home, can we not do it here? Because I do things with you and not, and he goes, oh, no, we have to do it.
Yeah, they do that a lot. I always say when they, I mean, I know there's some reason to warm up. I asked them if I could come 15 minutes early. No. I always figure when they stick me on a bike or an arm bike or something, that basically they're overloaded. They give them too many cases and they get behind. They can't get, especially later in the day. I try and make my appointments first thing in the morning if I can. First of all, I'm a morning person. Second of all, you don't have that accumulated drift and schedule in the middle of the afternoon. They're so far behind, they're like babysitting you for part of your session. I'm like you, Robin. I'm going, well, wait a minute now. This is my PT time. And you can't, I'll let you go back to one other thing is you're absolutely right about, time. Um, While we all know neuroplasticity lasts a lifetime, you do have more of it early on. And sometimes if you jump on your recovery, I've seen a couple of people, Bob Anderson, for example, jumped all over his recovery from day 2, maybe even day 1. And at 6 months, he's doing, I mean, if you saw him at Home Depot, you wouldn't think he ever had a stroke. So while you can always get better, I'm doing it right now at 14 years. So, I mean, with my hip, that's definitely proof in neuroplasticity. The more you jump on it in the beginning is a good thing. And you probably lucked out having that bad experience with the first PT. You know why? Because in my opinion, it caused you to say, I need to take responsibility for this because, like I say, the cavalry isn't coming. They're not going to do it for me. I got to do it for myself. One more thing, and I'll let you go. We all have that reaction after, like, I had my stroke on my exercise bike training for the senior games, and I said, well, I can't walk, so probably the running events are out. I was actually in the rehab hospital considering doing the senior games 30 to 40 days after my stroke. And then we all go through that. And then, like, I don't know, a week or 10 days in, like you, I suddenly went, okay, Ralph, this is a bigger deal than than you first thought. So you were talking a little bit about your job, and I guess you work with special needs kids and stuff. That must be challenging. One of the things that you like to think about yourself doing is inspiring others. How do you go about trying to inspire? What do you think are the key points to inspiring somebody else? And did the work that you do with the kids in the school system, does that give you any kind of insight or tips or in terms of how to go about that?
About 30 years. And just helping my community raise jobs. Working with families was very learned to be honest, be helpful and resourceful. Uh, that was because my goal, my intention, started my Instagram page was just to really help yourself. You look back and look at it and see it and remember and analyze how I'm stepping, how I'm looking, how I'm sitting, how that I can do better. You know, so my initial intention. But people, the stroke community was just so supportive to me, so encouraging. I'm like, wow, this is a great place to be. And people were really being encouraged by watching me stumble and fall and try, work, and so they were encouraged by it. But I felt that you want hopeful, what's possible, but at the time you want to be about the hard work that it takes to get there. You you don't want to show, oh, I'm doing this and it's great and I can do this and I can do that. You gotta show the journey. You gotta talk about the journey. You gotta say, oh, this happened. I can move my hands because I literally move my thousands of times, over the course of a 2 days, over a course of a year. It wasn't that I jumped up and all of a sudden after a couple of days now I can move my hand. No, you want to be honest, and I think people appreciate that. They don't want to be delusional. They think, oh, I can do this. All I have to do this a couple of times, and I'm going to be good. No, you know. And so in some of my videos, I talk about it. I talk about how hard it is. And they'll ask me, well, how long did it take you to do to where your hand was normal, which is still isn't normal. And I tell them, I said, well, it took me about a year and a half to where I could use my hand where I was confident. Do my hand not let me down, And even today, 4 years in, I still have some like, okay, hand, let's go, kind of moment. But so yes, and inspired by your honesty, you know, and that kind of feeds the motivation. But the motivation is that it, to me, for me, motivation wasn't at first it was consistent, because I like a challenge. It was consistent at first, maybe that first year, because I started to see improvement and it got me more motivated and more. So, but after about year two, and I was complacent and thinking about, well, maybe this is good enough, maybe I can stop here, but motivation eventually got replaced by the desire to just do better for myself. Because as a mother, as a friend, you learn your family, your kids, and your job, and you're just a giver, So I had to make my mind that I deserve the best that I could give myself. And I would use that to drive me every day. I use it now because 4 years in, and I could easily say, you know what, it's good enough. I still got a little limp, and I can't run like I want, and so I'm gonna stop here, and I could take attitude, and I do, but in my heart, I want to give myself what I would give my daughter, you know, and so that's what I think is inspiring. I think it is motivating to other people. Honesty is a big part because I think, like, in my, not that people weren't being honest with me. I don't think they just weren't talking to me, telling me what was going on. And so I think people appreciate hearing the truth about your experiences. They appreciate hearing the truth about limitation and struggle and how hard, even though everybody's situation is different, everybody's experience is different, but they appreciate hearing the truth, and it is inspiring and it is encouraging, I think.
Well, I guess listening to you, I guess I pretty much do the same thing. I guess I feel like a realistic look at what it takes to get better is the best advice or inspiration that you can give to anybody out there. I'm always realistic. I don't sugarcoat things, but I also believe in I believe in telling people the basic truth, but I also believe in making sure that there's some element of hope in the whole thing. One other thing that I heard you kind of say that I think is true, and that's I bet once you start on this journey, once you get all that feedback from people, it's kind of motivating to you as well as the people that you're inspiring and motivating, because I think that back and forth, like you said, the entire stroke survivor community seemed to jump on your Instagram. And I think when that whole thing happens, that both sides benefit from it. So obviously, at some point, you got this Instagram channel and you're knocking out videos. I think you said you started to analyze some of your own movements as well, and found out they benefited other people. Obviously, at some point, like all of us, you ran out of insurance. I don't know if you started thinking about. I bet just from listening to you, I bet you started getting homework and everything before you ran out of insurance, and you started setting up your own home program, before you ran out of insurance. I think that's really important that we get that message across to stroke survivors, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you run out of insurance. So you said something about, you realized that you had to do it. The two things I think that are important in this whole process are three: jump on it, don't waste any time, take responsibility for your recovery, and number three, start working on setting up a home exercise program before they release you from physical therapy, and you're scrambling to do it at the last minute. If you do it all along, it's just second nature. When they release you, you already know what you're doing. So talk a little bit about when you ran, about how and when you set up your home program, and assume you're not in therapy anymore at 4 years, although you can go back every year if you want.
First of all, I was so naive, I had no idea of the whole insurance structure, you know, until they told me you have 6 sessions. And I'm like, what? Yeah, you got 20 sessions. PT is so first of all, that surprised me, to say the least. But because of my at-home rehab program, uh, one of the like, of course, in the beginning I was not, I wheelchair about my bed. That's how I got around. However, I quickly realized that the bed was my first exercise tool, right? So I learned if I could do something before I got out of bed, you know, that really got me off to a really good start. And that's where I started sitting up. And sitting up was hard when you only have one good stop, you know? So I would do that. I would sit, I would lay back up, and I would do that as many times as I could. And started with my hand. I would do that. See what I do in bed, ideally before I got out of bed, because once I got out of bed, my day took a life of, you know. So if I could control that time, quiet, isolated time in my bed, so I figure out that I could do in bed, and I still do.
Can I interrupt, please?
Sure.
She's really been broken up here.
Are we the only ones having it broken up? We're having a hard time hearing.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me? Am I better now?
Yes.
At the moment, you are.
Okay, I'm gonna try to stay close.
Yeah. All right.
Well, it's interesting since we're stopping here. Um, I'm not exactly sure of the scientific term, but we've discussed it before, and this is something that several other stroke survivors noticed early on and made me aware of, and that is your brain does some kind of reset when you sleep. Dr. Hetzler may know the official term for it, or he may not. I don't want to. But basically, when you well, I know somebody who discovered that their hand worked in the morning before they got out of bed, and once they stood up, it didn't. And that the part of the reason for that is when you stand up, you use somewhere between 200 and 210 muscles, and your brain's now talking to 200 muscles, and it's no longer in that kind of reset position. So that's something that a number of stroke survivors, in addition to you, sounds like you kind of discovered it on your own too, like I discovered bilateral therapy on my own, even though it already existed.
Well, Ralph, in terms of sleep, there's several things going on. And one of them is that over 8 hours of sleep in the night, you go through a series of cycles where you go in and out of different stages of sleep. And one of those stages is REM sleep, or rapid eye movement sleep, which is when you tend to dream. And you have about 5 REM cycles a night, each one getting longer and longer. So your first REM period, which might occur, say, an hour after you go to sleep, may last 10 minutes. And then about 90 minutes later, you'll go into another one, and then another, and so on. And in the morning, you'll have your longest REM period, which can be up to an hour and a half. Now, the interesting thing about REM sleep, or one interesting thing, is that when you are in REM sleep, you are paralyzed. You cannot move your muscles. So even if you're spastic, those muscles will be limp while you're in REM sleep. So when you wake up from REM sleep, that's going to be the first time you've used, or those muscles have had tone for about an hour or so. And the tone will kick in as you start to use them, and may get worse, at least initially, as you use them.
Okay, so there's, as usual, there's always a scientific explanation. So I teach people, I try and tell people, Robin, that, hey, try and see what your body will do first thing in the morning. Of course, most of us are fighting our bladders first thing in the morning. That's usually what wakes me up. I'm not too good at doing exercises when I'm dancing in bed. So anyway, so it sounds like you got an early start on setting up a program. I go on a limb here, Robin. I bet you're a stubborn person. All right. A little bit, just a little bit. Yeah, I think so. I'm not trying to insult you. When one doctor, when I left the hospital, said, "I think you'll be okay." And I said, "How do you know?" He said, "You're stubborn, and stubborn people do better." And I've actually seen that to be true. There's, in fact, Michelle said it yesterday in her group about a guy we all know in her group called Eric, who's real stubborn, and he's going to get better because he's going to bang his head against it until he does. And he's also trying to, I shouldn't say bang his head against it, he's going to go at it, because banging your head against it implies you're doing it without forethought or a plan, and he has a plan, and he's doing his best to execute it. So When you gave up on therapy, talk a little bit about your home program and how much therapy did you do and how did you integrate it into your life, especially if you had to go back to work?
No, I haven't gone back to work.
Okay. Well,
And I do, especially first day, every day, especially the first 2 years I had a regimen in the morning, regimen in the afternoon, and a regimen in the evening. And I had nothing else to do. So, why go that time with healing? And I learned to use what I had to do what I needed to do. Because I saw a lot of videos, and like you said, there are a lot of tools and combs and different things that are out there. I couldn't afford all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so I would figure out what I could use to substitute. And and
Okay.
it's insane. So yeah, I started doing something 3 times a day over the course of every day, especially over the first 2 years. Um, I did have ultimately get a really good physical therapist, but I paid her out of pocket, and I didn't see her quite often. But she was honest. She told me the truth. She was the one that really kind of told me, Robin, listen, you can't just do what you do here and go. Everything's gonna be okay. You have to take responsibility. This is you. This is your body, your life. You
Yeah.
take responsibility for your recovery. So
Oh, okay.
So yeah, she really just emphasized that for me. So yeah, and I think really that's what did it. One of the unique but one of the things that really kind of helped me in terms of practical for at home rehab, that I would try to do whatever I could before I got out of bed. And I would use the bed, especially once I could stand. And I would sit on the bed, on the edge of my bed, and I would stand up and I would sit and I would stand and I would sit and I would stand. I would do that several times. And whatever I could do in and around my bed helped me. Um, and then one of the other things I talk about, because I think it was like kind of genius, Ralph, pat myself on the back about it. But I created this obstacle course between my bed to my closet, or from my bed to my bathroom, which is in my bedroom. Uh, and I would create like an obstacle course. So I would have to step over something. I would have to move something left to right. I would have to turn around. I would have to I would have to do several different things before I could get to wherever it was I was going. And I have to do it again coming back, you know? And that made my brain work quickly every time, all the time. And those were things I kept in place. It wasn't like I put it there and it was fun. I kept it in place. So my bed was literally like an obstacle course, because I just walked in my room. I always had over something, or I had to pick something up and move it to the other side. And then when I was coming back, I had to move it to the other side and come up, So it took me a little while to get creative about what I could do without myself. And that's the primary for me at home recovery. Rehab is safe, easy, it's overly optimistic, think that you can do more and hurt yourself that. And the last thing I wanted to do. So I was always cautiously optimistic, and made sure that everything was in my limitation at that time. And if I was doing something, I wanted something that was new or something I'm quite sure about, I'd have to wait until someone got home and they could help me or watch me. But being safe was key. Last thing I did was to fall again, to overextend myself in any way. So safety was always at the forefront of everything I did.
well, yeah, I'm big on safety myself. When you fall, you can get hurt, but more importantly, or, well, not more importantly, if you got hurt, that would be more important. But the thing that you get hurt the most when you fall is your confidence. Um, Guess what? Also, when you set up that obstacle course, you were doing therapy the whole time you were setting it up and the whole time you were taking it down, not just when you walked. I know one other stroke survivor who did that, Neil Isaac. I actually went and interviewed him the first time I met him, and he had an obstacle course set up. We shot some video of him doing different things that he did in his therapy, like the peg boards and stuff. And one of his things was obstacle courses. And I think there's something there. I think you're right. You know why? Because it forces you to do all kinds of little things that you don't tend to do, and they don't teach you right away in physical therapy. When you come up to a chair and you want to sit in it, you got to do like a little dance to turn around to get your butt facing the chair. I call those little scoochy steps. I don't know where that comes from, but they don't teach you. Well, so I've actually been with stroke survivor I took where we did teach her that kind of thing, but they tend to teach you, things like walking. We're going to walk, and that kind of thing. And there's a lot more to getting around the house than just walking. If you think about it, when you walk around your house, how many times do you get to take 6 or 8 steps uninterrupted? And then what happens? Then you're entering another room, you're going around something and everything. So I think obstacle courses, maybe we should both make videos on it. Maybe you probably already have, haven't you?
Of course, I did really early on, and I actually don't think I have any videos of it.
Well, I'll make one if you make one.
Okay, that's a deal.
No, I think it's a good message to get out, and we're back to this. The two things that you did that I think are not responsible but aided in your recovery are the fact that you took responsibility, you set up a home program, and then you adapted stuff like. I don't know if I said it earlier or in the conversation earlier. Oh yeah, a recent video, I think the last one of yours I saw, you set up a bunch of shoes and you lifted your leg over and put it down between each of the shoes. And the fact you have a big spread means that leg is lifting up in a different way on the inside of one and all the way on the outside of the other because you're abducting it out and adducting it back in as you move it up and down. We all have a closet full of shoes. Well, maybe not a closet full, but we all got several pairs of shoes. You just put them down. So no, you don't need a set of $20 therapy cones. You can set up shoes. And when you get to where you can go over the shoes, get out the soup cans. They're taller than shoes. There's always something around your house. One, I was talking about doing something, pulling your toes with a rope or a TheraBand. Somebody told me I use knee-high socks on my bed. Brilliant. The point is, if you want to do an exercise, figure out what you got around the house that you can make it happen, and don't. I think a lot of people see some of these videos and they think they have to replicate them identically right down to whatever the person is using. And if they don't have it, then they come up with this, well, I can't do that mindset. And that's the one thing you don't want to do, in my opinion. That's the one thing you don't want to let happen in recovery. You want to keep going. Any kind of movement's good movement. So, just take the things that you have and do it. Every one of my videos is set right here in my house. There's a reason for that, because I think we get better at home. I think that therapists are like piano teachers. You go there once a week and you practice. They give you some tips. They tell you what you're doing right. They tell you what you're doing wrong. They give you new sheet music, new exercises, same thing. You go home and you practice and you come back and you're better. But most of the work is going on like in piano lessons when you practice every day. Not so much in the half hour or 45 minutes you get with the music teacher. And so that's a time, you really need to not be on the arm bike or warming up. You need that therapist's attention the whole time if you can get it, so that you can learn more. I, I, I won't go home without learning something. I won't go home without new exercises. And I kind of make that clear. I mean, I'm nice about it, but I kind of make that, the way I'm nice about it is I kind of try and make it clear from the get-go that that this is my philosophy and I'm here to pick your brain and do the work at home and come back and show you. And in the case of, well, I'm back in physical therapy just by luck, accident. Typically I'm not, so I have to figure out what I'm doing myself. So I think it's real important to just pick up the chip clip and start doing pinching. I at therapy they have it's actually made out of maple. They have therapy blocks. They have them in a couple different sizes. There are things you put your foot on for foot placement, or you step over for. I got a piece of scrap 4x4 that was out under the eaves of my garage. It works perfectly well. And when I had somebody who had ataxia from a cerebellum stroke, she kept kicking it. And I felt bad for her because I wanted her to be successful. Because when you keep kicking something and you feel like you're not successful, then you can get discouraged. She never did, though. So I just tried, okay, we'll take the block out. I tried a piece of tape. A piece of tape on the ground works fine. What you're doing with foot placement is, you're trying to hit the same target. Doesn't matter if the target's up 3 inches or if the target's on the ground. Same with stepping over. So there's, I think the people that are willing to try and figure out things and adapt are gonna do better because they basically don't run into roadblocks. So, and I was thinking about you saying you don't know where you're headed now, and now that you're 4 years out, they don't really tell us. Maybe they don't know. I mean, I did a talk where I tried to answer the 200 questions I had after my stroke, and I had to find out the answers to all of them because there wasn't anybody really to ask. So, when people ask me why I do this, I tell them trying to be the person I wish I could have talked to. I'm sure you wish you had a person you could have talked to when you felt
Yeah.
After your stroke, because you identified the same gap that I did. There's a gap between like getting released from the hospital, the time it takes to get into PT, what they tell you at PT, what they don't tell you at PT. And the other thing is nobody's really dealing with the whole, what happened to you and the whole mental aspect of dealing with it. We all get assigned to PT. Took you 2 weeks, you said. Did they assign you to any kind of therapist or mental to deal with the mental side? No, they didn't. They didn't, I don't think. They didn't with most of us. So we're kind of left on our own to figure out how to best deal with this. And as human beings, some of us are able to do that better than others, which is why people like you, Robin, and I try and share our experience in being successful with this with other people so that they can model good behavior, so they can pick up tips and try and do better in their own recovery. So what other kinds of adapting and innovating have you done it in your recovery?
One of the best tools I ever used was a kickball.
Can you lean in a little bit?
One of the I ever used was a kickball.
Kickball?
A kickball. You know the kickball,
Right.
you're a kid and you play kickball with it. They're rubber and they bounce. Good
Yeah,
sign.
no, no.
Yeah, the red rubber balls we all dodged as kids when they try to wing them at your head at 100 miles an hour.
If you have a kickball, you have a valuable tool. Because I used it to kick with my affected leg and my unaffected leg. I used it to bounce with my affected arm and my unaffected arm. I used it to throw it against my house and catch it, then bounce and catch it and throw it. And you could throw up and you could throw down, you could throw to the side, and you know, red ball. If you don't have anything else, you get a kickball. And you really got creative with what you can do with it according to what your needs are, and what your limitations are. So that's really valuable. I love my ball. It's old now and the air out of it, but that was a valuable, unexpected resource tool. A physical therapist told me to get it. One of the best physical therapists I had me to get it, and I got it. It was the best thing I had. It was the best tool I ever had. So, and just really, if I can say, use your best judgment. You're gonna talk to people, a lot of therapists are gonna tell you different things. Use your very best judgment, research and research again, talk to people like Ralph, be part of, supportive stroke recovery communities, because what I also learned is that somebody wants to do what you can do. Somebody to be where you are. No matter, somebody is aspiring to be where you are and be able to do what you're doing. And that was a realization that I had, because some of us, we get so down about where we are and what our limitations are, and not keeping in mind that it's aspiring to be where you are and be able to do what you're doing, and that can be um, and the other thing I wanted to say about physical therapists, that I took a chance leaving my first physical therapy rehab place, because I didn't know I was going to get to a better place. I just knew that that one wasn't right, and it helps you when you can give it a that may be a lot like you, because 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, that therapist is not a survivor. I had a physical therapist that was also a stroke survivor. I'm sure there's some out there, but
No one.
We're educated. They're educated. I've had one physical therapist. I wish I could. If you were in Miami, I would tell you where to find her. But, and I'm sure there are a lot of great physical therapists out there, but we are educating them. We have to communicate, ask questions. We can't just Zoom. I'm on Zoom. So we can't just assume that they have all the answers. If you do not communicate, you do not express what's happening to you, they're going to assume. They're going to make assumptions based on their education and based on their experiences. Communicate, don't ask questions. Don't be afraid to say, why do I have to do this? What is this going to do? How is this helping me? How many times can I do this at home? You gotta put yourself out there. You just can't go and just kind of lay yourself out, do whatever you want, and stay with it, because I think that type of mindset doesn't push them. If they know, because I would imagine that Ralph's PT had to prepare for Ralph, because they that when Ralph comes, Ralph is going to ask questions. Ralph, see how he's going to make me work, So that's your PT need to expect when you if you have they need to know that when you come in, you're going to ask questions. You're going to communicate. You're going to help them to grow, them to get a better understanding of what stroke survivors are going through, So But again, a lot of us don't have PTs. I don't, you know, but in that case, you have a huge responsibility. You have a responsibility anyway.
Yourself.
But right, exactly, exactly. And like I said, my biggest advice is to research, be a part of a really good support group like this one. You know, ask questions, research again, get you a really smart friend that you can talk to and run things by. Be diligent, consistency, repetition, and I can't say enough about those. Everybody at different stages and can do different things, but the common thing, what what's the bottom line for whatever you're doing is repetition, consistency, and diligence. You know, working hard at it every day, whatever you're doing. Repetition, whatever it is, over and over and over and over and over. There's no, oh, how many times? How many times can you do it? Hours are there in a day, but sometimes if you say, well, do 100 of these, that sounds overwhelming. But if 25 in the morning, another 3 hours, you do another 25, another 3 hours, you do another 25. By the end of the day, you've done 100 of something, you know. So, yeah, it's possible, but you have to stay encouraged. And the other thing that I wanted to say before I end it is that the thing about progress, because everybody wants to see progress, everybody wants to see themselves do better, everybody wants an outcome for all the hard work that they're doing. I realized what about progress is that progress is happening before you actually see it manifested outside. And because they're hard and work hard, and then the next day I wake up, I'm better, I'm stronger, I can do this now, I can stand up now. So don't be discouraged if you're not seeing progress that you want to see. If you're being consistent, if you're doing repetition, if you're being diligent, progress in some form or another is coming. So don't give up. Allow that progress to eventually happen. Because in that, I don't guarantee anything. I'm not a therapist. I just know my experience, and my told me that repetition, diligence, consistency, progress.
Well, the other thing I try and tell people to pay attention to small details of progress. You might not be jumping out of the wheelchair and walking, but the first time you do a sit to stand, well, that's pretty obvious. But there are lots of things, like with your hand. A lot of times, oh, look, I can touch my fingers now, that kind of thing. I always tell my therapist, well, the current one, I'm 14 years out, so I flat out told him, I said, I'm here to learn. If I can get better, great, but I'm mostly here to pick your brain. And he said, ask away. And I said, I literally pointed at him and said, you're my boy. Because, and he actually joined the group last week. And we're engaged in a back and forth. He says, I don't know anything about neuro. When on the first session, we've had about 8 or 10. The one before last, he said, he repeated one of my things back to me, and he said, you've been teaching me about neuro. And, I said to him, I said, you've known it all along. We're just having the conversation, and I'm just pointing it out. I'm going to make a kickball video, too. I'm going to go buy a kickball because I don't have one. And two other things you can do with a kickball, any kind of large ball like that, your fingers don't live fully extended like that. They just don't. If you like don't think about it and just put your hand out, they're in kind of a curve, a natural curve. And that natural curve kind of matches that size or slightly smaller ball. I mean, there may be a more ideal size, but a kickball is also a good thing you could put in your lap and drape your hand over it to kind of hold your fingers in that natural position, especially if they want to, I should do it in my affected hand, especially if they want to like curl up. You can just put them out on the ball. And another great thing you can do with a kickball is if you put it between your knees while you're doing bridges, it'll force you to go 50-50 on your, or closer to 50-50 on your affected leg. And when you're, one more thing about kickballs, when you're kicking it around and you're throwing it against the wall, well, first of all, when you're kicking it around, whether you're doing it with your affected foot or your unaffected foot, when you're doing it with your unaffected foot, you have to totally weight bear on your affected foot. And you get engaged in an activity like that and you don't realize you're doing physical therapy. What's happening when you're throwing it against the wall? You're working not only on movement, but you're working on your reflexes and, going this way to going that way. That's a big deal. I had trouble with that. A couple of years after my stroke, I'm a video engineer. I was on a job and somebody tossed me a cable, and I just automatically it was going to come up short. So I moved up, I grabbed it, and I couldn't stop. It's really hard to shift gears after a stroke. I actually dropped to my knees. I didn't get hurt or anything. I just couldn't stop myself. So when you're throwing the ball, the other thing you can do is you can try and catch it with your affected hand. I've done that with a tennis ball. I'll toss it up. In the beginning, it'll hit the middle of your hand and bounce out. You have to learn that you have to kind of anticipate it. You have to learn a different timing on your affected hand. And I did that. I was practicing throwing tennis balls with my affected hand. I've never done anything. I never threw with my left hand. I was always right-handed. Now I'm left affected like you. So I'm throwing the tennis balls and I go out and I pick them all up with my unaffected hand, all three of them. And I said, well, there's my next challenge because I ought to be picking all three of them up with my unaffected hand. And it took me a couple days and all of a sudden I'm picking them all up with my affected hand. Then when I brought them back, I said, okay, I need to learn how to drop them one at a time. That's a little tricky. It's easy to drop all three at once, easier. So I learned to drop them one at a time. And then I'm walking back with the tennis balls. I've carried two over here and I put one here and I just toss it up and catch it. And I found that it was very difficult to do that when I was walking because I had a forward trajectory, forward momentum as well. So I just, before I put them down, I just practiced. And then when I got pretty good at that and squeezing it at the right time so it didn't bounce out of my hand, then I started practicing doing it while I was walking. Now all this is occurring when all I'm doing is picking up the tennis balls that I threw and bringing them back so I can throw them again. So like you, Robin, everything is an opportunity to do some more therapy. I guess I'll be heading to Dick's Sporting Goods or somewhere to find a kickball. Because I think that's really good advice, and I think I'm running out of things that I did to get better. So I'm now looking for things like, well, one other thing you talked about that I think would make good videos, and I really need to find somebody who did a lot of bed exercises. I try to get out of the wheelchair. I tried to always my approach to doing something was not how to learn how to do it part way or a hack for it. I know we talked about hacks yesterday in Michelle's class, and there's certainly a place for them. But my attitude was always learn how to do it so you can do it the way you used to do it. So I'm looking for other ideas. One of them would be I'd love to find somebody who, well, I guess I could look it up online. I don't have anything on doing exercises in bed. One of the things you can do is lay on the bed and you take gravity out of the situation, like in moving your arm. You're laying flat on the bed, and now you can move your arm. You're not lifting it up against gravity. And remember, Dr. Hetzer will tell you this, it's the anti-gravity muscles that are affected by a stroke. So when you can get gravity out of the equation, then you can get more movement. So I'm either going to find somebody or research it and make a series of videos on exercises you can do in bed. Then I guess I'm going to have to do ones on how to get in and out of a car, how to put your pants on without holding on to something. I guess there's an endless supply of videos out there that we could do, but kickball and obstacle course made it onto my little list here.
Another thing you can do with a kickball, if you've got one, if you're seated in a chair about, say, with your affected leg about a foot away from the wall or so, you could put the ball between your affected leg and the wall and push outwards. So you're pushing that ball in and out against the wall. That'll give you some exercise in your affected leg.
Right. Yeah, that would be abducting, which is a good thing to be able to do, because when you abduct, I think you're working your hip flexor muscles, and they're kind of key. So one thing you could do right before you do that is do the old figure 4 stretch and stretch out those hip abductors, and then put the ball down. Yeah, there's lots of things that you can do. That's a very good point on just not only is it an additional thing with the kickball, but it's an additional attitude or philosophy. And I bet you Robin did this, because I know I did, and that was, I did therapy like all day long. I'd do 50 minutes on, 10 off, and I just did it all day long. But even when it was time to quit and we were sitting watching the sun go down, I had my hammer there or something. I just might be, working on my wrist. So while you're sitting there, I learned how, at 11 years out, I learned how to wiggle my toes in front of the TV. I noticed I put my feet up one day, barefoot. It was like this time of year where you start going barefoot like I am right now. And I put my feet up and I said, wow, my toes on my affected leg curl back. So I tried to move them, and they didn't move very well at all. So I just stood there, and mine curl up. Some people's curl down. This works the other way as well. So I just bent mine down and held them. I'd do that about 50% of the time. And the other 50% of the time, I'd take and I'd move them. Like Robin was talking about moving you can't move something. Dr. Hetzel will tell you this, mental practice or mental imagery. Move it with your other hand. And while you're doing it, think about opening it. Imagine that you're opening it, because that will help with connection. So I sat right there watching TV. It took about a month, for half an hour, 45 minutes a night. Didn't cost me any time. It wasn't like I went and sat down on my mat or anything. I was watching TV anyway, and I just bent the toe down, and now I can move my toes, and they both move, not identically, but the affected foot that didn't move hardly at all now moves about 80 or 90% of what the other one does. And so there's lots of time where you can do things that where you're doing something else. I mean, it's crazy, but I stand in my affected leg when I pump gas. I'm standing there, and if you need something to hold on to, turn around, put your fingers on the roof of the car. Just light touch it and then practice. So I do the same thing when I put my dinner in the microwave. Why should I stand there for 2 minutes and stare at it? I balance for 2 minutes. So there's lots of little time. I see Robin's nodding her head, because she filled up a lot of these little time slots with just little things to do, working those fingers or whatever. So maybe we should not only say adapt, but keep at it.
Other, I really, it I learned after it became like a problem. I learned it relatively quickly. What more of an issue for women than it is for men. But I remember after my stroke, I was home and everything, and I back in the habit of trying to dress like dress, which was in jeans and a t-shirt or a shirt or whatever. But what I couldn't realize was that I couldn't do what I wanted to do in my jeans. I did it because I needed help getting dressed in the beginning. And even when I did it was still very difficult in the beginning. So I have to change my clothes twice. Put on clothes that allow me to do whatever I do during the course of a day. change my clothes in order to work out. I didn't have to change my clothes in order to go walking. I didn't have to change in order to stretch or whatever I wanted to do. That went a long way with me because in the beginning I got up and I tried to look cute. Well, I would put on my little jeans and whatever. And then when I said, "Okay, I have to want to go work out," then I had to change again. And sometimes I wouldn't work out because I didn't want to change my clothes. You know, it was too hard. It was too much, took too much effort. So I learned I'm not as cute, but whenever, I would get up and I put on clothes that would allow me to stretch, kick, walk, whatever I wanted to do during the course of a day. That took me a long way.
Well, one of the biggest motivators I found was not wanting to ask people to help you with your shirt or help you tie your hair back or can you tie my shoes again? That kind of thing. That was a big motivator for me because I don't think I don't like having to rely on other people. I don't like having to ask for help. So that was a big motivator for me. So let's see. Whoa, I guess we've talked for a little more than an hour. We probably could talk for another hour, but probably best to keep this to where somebody will look at it and go, okay, it's an hour, I could watch that. Worry about getting them too long and people getting discouraged or not making it through them. So, what are our takeaways? Inspiring others inspires you and keeps you motivated. We've got a guy who writes sayings every day, positive sayings. He does it for other people, but a lot of the reason he started it and the reason he keeps doing it is it keeps positivity going for him. So that's true about making videos or posting progress or anything like that. Establish a good relationship with your physical therapist. Start getting homework right away. Start working on a home program. Take responsibility for your recovery. Realize the cavalry's not coming and nobody gets better in 45-minute sessions. You can't just go into the therapist and say, make me better, because that doesn't happen. When you're at your PT session, you should be interacting with the PT. You should be saying, let's say you should be speaking half the words. Some people, I've seen them, I've taken people, and they go and they don't say a word. Not a word. I can't do that. I have to understand why we're doing this, how it fits into the program, what's next, that kind of thing. Because I look at it when I'm going that I'm working with my therapist. I mean, I'm working with them. They're not like telling me what to do. They should be listening to my goals and interacting with me the way that that would help me achieve those goals. So, and once you start doing a home therapy program and doing your homework, eventually you'll won't have insurance, or like me, you'll decide, I'm really okay doing this on my own. When I get therapists, I learn new things and I adapt them to home. And the last thing, of course, is adapting. Take the sneakers, take the shoes, and make a leg exercise. Set up an obstacle course. Get a dodgeball. Work your fingers. Pay attention to your toes and learn to wiggle them around the TV. Balance while your dinner's cooking or your gas is pumping. There's all kinds of little teeny time slots you can fill with therapy. And I guess the final thing is the thing we always say, which is therapy's all around you. So one of the most important things you can do, Robin knows this, is use that hand. Don't shy away from anything. I try not to shy away from anything. I got in a kayak over the weekend. That wasn't so hard. Getting out was harder, a lot harder. Well, you got nothing to hold on to. You got nothing. You're like your butt's in a pit. You can't put your feet anywhere. in this case, if you put your feet out of the kayak, you'd be in like quicksand mud. So you can't do that. You have to actually end up like crawling forward and getting to where you can stand up to get out of the hole. But so, in a safe way, because safety is important, try and take on any and all of life's challenges as they present themselves to you. So, Robin, I want to thank you for coming and sharing your experience, and I'll make sure that we put all like we did on the promotion stuff, I'll make sure that the video has all of your information so people can follow you on Instagram or whatever else they want. And and one more thing, I want to thank you for being inspirational to all the stroke survivors that you come in contact with. I think you know it, but whether you know it or not, what you're doing is inspirational, because I believe the most powerful message you can give to another stroke survivor is to show yourself getting better, hopefully, in the home environment. But the to me, the most powerful message is a visual of seeing other people getting better, and then because I think it makes stroke survivors say, well, if Robin's doing that, if Ralph's doing that, maybe I ought to give it a try. So that's the biggest takeaway. Never say I can't do that. Say I can't do that yet. I'm working on it.
Mm.
With that, I guess we'll end it. I want to thank everybody for coming, and we'll see everyone next time.
All right, see y'all later. Thank you, Robin.